here's what we're going to be making in this video. Okay, so in this short demonstration video, I'm just going to be going over how I made this little loop, which is my attempt to get close to the sort of Jon Hopkins style sound. It's not an exact copy of his track or any of his tracks or anything. It's just an attempt to get close to his sounds that he uses in his tracks and how I'll go about the sound design. So the first thing I've got going on here is the kick, which sounds like this. So as you can see there, it's just a low thud style kick. I've got some EQ on that, taking out the high end. So I've got this last kick that goes here, and I've just set this off the grid slightly to give it more of a shuffle. And then the next thing I've got here is just another kick, just layering this up. And what can I actually do there? I quite like the high end there, so I'm going to add an EQ and just take out the low end, because I think I've got plenty of thud in the first kick that I've used. And what those sound like together is this. And these are going to a bus, which is bus 3, and this one's not going to bus 3, so I'll just put that to bus 3, and I'll show you the bus. So on bus 3, it's sending the actual drum track to some saturation and some space in the space designer there, which is maybe up a little bit too high, so it's just to give it a bit of live space sound to the actual drum track there. And so together they sound like that. That's maybe a little bit too much reverb on that actually. So I'm just going to take that down even further. Okay, so what I've got then is just a little hit here. Just to start adding some percussion. Sort of almost using it as a snare really. And then the next thing I've got here is this little, it's like a paper tear sound, just to start layering up the percussion. And then I'm bringing this little stick hit, and if you notice with this stick hit, I've actually started moving it off the grid slightly, so it comes in at different points, again just to add a bit more shuffle to the percussion. And then the next one is another percussion sound, as you can hear there. And then what I've noticed in sort of Jon Hopkins style tracks is that he uses ambience very well, so you've even got a little bit of vinyl sound going on there, just to add a bit of dimension and soundscape. And then the next thing you have is the scissors to add to the percussion, just the scissor noise there. And as you can see with that one there, I've also set this off the grid just a little bit, and to help the shuffle the shuffle percussion that you normally hear in Jon Hopkins music. and all together sounding like I just dropped the volume of that stick hit in the mix there because it was a little bit dominating. And then, so what we've got next, so we've got all the percussion and the drum hits there. The next thing I've got is a plugin called Egoist, and I've got a loop in there. I think it's just a sort of ambient percussion style sound, and what that's doing in Egoist is just playing it back in different places, pretty much like a granulator really. And I've de-pitched that down to -8. Again, this just is complementing the percussion. And then the next thing we have here is the all-important bass, which is quite prevalent in Jon Hopkins' sound. And this sounds like this. So all this is 2 notes, quite simply played like that. And this is going into Omnisphere, and what I've done here is it's just a combination of white noise, very slightly, saw wave and a triangle wave, and there's a few effects going on here on the actual. If I turn the effects off, and what it is it's actually put through the Logic ARP, which is set to Swan Groove to add to the shuffle. Now that is going into effects rack there. You've got power filter on, and I've modulated the filter cut off there with an LFO on a very slow rate, and that's on the sine wave there. And yeah, that's pretty much it really, and that's the noise, the triangle and the saw wave playing together. So that's just a simple synth sound with a bit of modulation on. I've also got saturation there, some chorus and a compressor. So I'm just using the Echo Melt plugin there to add some saturation, and then I've got it going into a bass amp, so then that sounds like this so far. And then that's going into a bass amp, which is Logic's inbuilt bass amp. It's just the heavy bottom bass amp. And then I've got it going into this is another compressor, and then it's going into a gain plugin. This is actually converting the stereo to mono, to have my bass in mono, and then this goes into a limiter, which is just set, or it should be just set to just -1 dB. So without the plugins it sounds like this. And with the plugins it sounds like this. So what I'm going to do is, with this one, I'm actually going to swap this compressor to the Logic built-in compressor, and what I'm going to do is sidechain that to the kick, which is on this first channel here, just to make way for that kick there a bit more. So then altogether so far we have this progression. And so the next thing I've got going on here is the ARP lead, which is just literally the same notes as the bass and sounds like this. And this again goes through Omnisphere. So it's just a simple saw wave there, and again I think I've modulated should have modulated the cutoff there with the LFO like so, so it's just so it's playing slightly differently every time it hits, which sounds like and on Omnisphere there I'm going to modulate the shape as well, just use LFO to modulate that, just bring the rate right down. Just delay that a bit. And altogether so far we've got it sounding like this. And then the last thing I've got there is the ARP, another ARP lead, which sounds like this. So this is obviously just adding some further harmonics there, just going up in pitch, and it's controlled by this Logic built-in ARP on this chord groove 7. And as you can see, the octave ranges up to 3, so it's just pushing the harmonic octave up there a bit. And what did I do with that? I think I again probably modulated the cutoff there. And I've maybe modulated the pitching or the fine pitching just there, just slightly. You could also add some frequency modulation. That's what it's all about with these type of sounds, is just creating a character for each type of sound. So it's not doing the same thing all the time basically. And then so altogether that's sounding like this. And that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a short loop, just attempting to get close to the sound of Jon Hopkins. Thanks very much for watching. If you could subscribe to my channel, I'd be eternally grateful.